Certainly could. Hi again, everybody. It's now 5 o'clock in New York. It's not a great sign in politics when members of your own base have to beg you to focus on the issues your base cares about. One Trump voter living in a swing congressional district warning Donald Trump that his $1.8 billion slush fund and his refusal to focus on affordability could cause Republicans to lose his district. Donald Trump's obsession with political retribution and bolstering and bandaging up his own ego as Americans face higher and higher prices with no end in sight may finally be using up the Republican Party's seemingly endless vats of patience. Here's Republican Senator Tom Tillis.
Look, you're talking about people who assaulted Capitol police officers on January the 6th, were then convicted. Many of them pled guilty, or they were convicted by a jury of their peers. They could be eligible for this. This is all a distraction, and some people even think it may look like self-dealing. I think whoever advised the president on this being a wise idea should not see they should not plan on coming in the office on Monday.
Just a note, some of us have always been talking about people who assaulted police officers. That has been the whole point for years now. Even the conservative Wall Street Journal editorial board has weighed in on this, though. In an op-ed entitled, quote, "Trump has lost the governing plot," the Wall Street Journal editorial board writing this, quote, "Trump's politics have always been largely personal, but in his second term, it has become self-indulgent, even by his standards. The Trump name on everything, the Beltway Arch and other monuments to French-like grandeur, and most of all, the politics of retribution and lawfare, as he seeks to ruin anyone he thinks has wronged him. Trump needs a second-year reset, or he is headed toward a second-term failure." Now, despite those high-level, those were all Republicans, this Wall Street Journal editorial page, it's Republican Tom Tillis, despite those intra-MAGA warnings, Donald Trump isn't listening or slowing down. He shows no signs of pulling back on his obsession and quest for retribution and revenge, and instead, I don't know, focusing on gas prices? No. Instead, Trump's Justice Department has been busy hiding the details of the criminal cases of January 6 defendants, including one man who faced separate state charges of soliciting a minor. In a social media post, DOJ called the information they removed, quote, "partisan propaganda," end quote. Donald Trump continuing to obsess over political retribution and self-dealing, even as his own party takes to the airwaves to beg him to wake up and spell the public's outrage, is where we begin the hour. New York Times Justice Department reporter Glenn Thrush is here. Also joining us, Margaret Donovan. She was captain in the JAG Corps and is the former assistant U.S. attorney for the District of Connecticut. She's now a visiting lecturer at Yale Law. Also joining us, former DHS chief of staff during Trump's first term, Miles Taylor is here. Glenn Thrush, let me start with you. And Ben Rich just made a great point about how, because the authoritarian tactics get mushed in with the political analysis, we sometimes ascribe more political prowess to the things Trump does because it has the effect politically of quieting and quelling dissent inside the Republican Party. Some of that seems to be lifting, largely with people like Thomas Massie saying, you know, down but not out. You guys have more months of me. Tillis having a big, I don't know what, seeming to release 9 years of Bob Corker-like disgust with Donald Trump. I think Bob Corker was the last Republican to be as disgusted by Donald Trump as Tom Tillis was over the weekend on the Sunday shows. But the political sort of rebukes are following months now of judicial rebukes from judges, even ones appointed by people like George W. Bush and Donald Trump. And one thing that we didn't lift into this conversation is the rebuke of Todd Blanche himself over the criminal case the judge argues manufactured against Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Just talk about Todd Blanche as a political liability for Donald Trump today.
Well, I mean, you know, one of the things that's interesting is this differentiation that Tillis and others attempt to make between Donald Trump and the people who are advising him, as if Donald Trump is taking anyone's advice to take these maximalist positions. And the same thing holds true for Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche is doing what Donald Trump wants him to do. I think if given his druthers, Blanche would be a relatively vanilla, if somewhat MAGA flavored attorney general, but Trump is demanding these things of Todd Blanche. And if you want to have any evidence of that, every time Trump mentions Blanche's name, he says acting attorney general Todd Blanche. But you're absolutely right. On the Abrego Garcia case in particular, no other attorney general or deputy attorney general, for that matter, in recent history, really post-Watergate history, has been rebuked in such explicit terms, in terms of fostering an environment in which facts were mischaracterized. And as my colleague Alan Foyer documented so wonderfully in a piece today on the way that grand juries are responding to this, up and down the line, you see prosecutors working under Blanche who are either being accused of mischaracterizing information, cherry picking the jurors. We've really never seen anything like this. And people have got to understand that this is not common practice. Whatever the Trump administration is saying about this just being typical business, that is not true. This is extraordinarily different and divergent from the norms and principles the department has abided by in the past.
I mean, and that's before we get to the slush fund. I've never seen something sort of spoil in the sunlight of press coverage as quickly as the $1.8 billion slush fund, Glenn. Any second thoughts about giving cash payments to convicted child molesters?
There's literally nobody that I've spoken to in decision-making positions in this administration, in the Justice Department, I should say, who think this was a good idea. Nobody. This is a Trump idea. It doesn't matter if it's a good idea. My father used to say to me, my father's a Navy veteran. He used to say, there's a right way and there's a wrong way and there's a Navy way, right? There's the right way, there's the wrong way, and then there's the Trump way. I think the general sense is that Donald Trump has issued this order. Todd Blanche is an Article 2 guy. He's Trump's former defense lawyer. He's in for a dime, and he's in for $1.8 billion.
Miles Taylor, the why it matters, though, is that the politics are changing by the hour. You had today South Carolina Republicans rebuke, whatever word you want to use, the Trump White House pressure campaign to redraw their maps. You have voters going out and doing what they can do every 2 and 4 years, and that is vote. And you have Republicans, I won't call it a spine yet, but at least finding some vocal cords adjacent to the spine and attacking him. As Trump, and trust me, I've worked for politicians with low approval ratings. As Trump gets down to 27, 26, 25%, he will find it very difficult to land Air Force One anywhere other than the rubious red dots in the rubious red counties or the rubious red states.
It's the optics, Nicole, and the reality both colliding to do political damage to this administration. I mean, the optics problem is so obviously bad. You've laid it out. The optics problem on the slush fund. That's why you had 24 Republican senators let acting Attorney General Todd Blanche have it in a meeting last week, something this administration wasn't used to. They were hoping that Republicans were just going to rubber stamp this for them like they've been rubber stamping things for the president. And instead, you saw the pictures of Todd Blanche's face afterwards. He looked beleaguered, to say the best. He is not in a good position, Donald Trump, to sustain this optically. But then there's the reality, as you note, of where these payments might go, the legal weakness of this entire thing, the fact that if they just award money to people allegedly prosecuted in the last administration, it will wither in the courts if it ever even got that far. Here's the thing. It's not just the January 6th police officers that defended the Capitol who are suing. I know that there are a number of lawsuits being planned in addition to that one against this slush fund because there are so many legal areas to take it down. In fact, at Defiance.org, we are part of one of the efforts to go bring another lawsuit against this slush fund. It's not going to survive. But what will survive, unfortunately, is the terrible ball and chain optics that Republicans are going to have to run on this fall, because even if it goes down, Democrats are going to use this against them rightfully, and the president's allies are going to suffer. They know that, and as you saw in South Carolina, they're running from it.
Miles, can you tell us, is your lawsuit on the side of the actual victims of the violence, the law enforcement officials, or is it on the side of the, which seems outrageously corrupt, part of the settlement that says Donald Trump and his sons and his companies can never be audited ever, ever, ever for things they've already done or may not have even thought of doing yet?
Well, it won't be brought in our name at Defiance.org, but we are helping to support the efforts of another amazing nonprofit organization to bring a case that I think, Nicole, will be even stronger than the ones that the police officers brought. Now, I think morally, what the officers brought is probably the most important case. But there's an even stronger legal case to be brought against this slush fund. And I think that there are several others brewing out there. I mean, this thing, if it's not going to get smothered by Republicans on Capitol Hill, it is absolutely going to get decimated in the court of law. And they're going to have to fight back case after case after case against this if judges don't combine them all together, because it's so obviously weak. It's so obviously illegal. I cannot imagine a penny goes to these criminals at the end of the day.